Live on YouTube. I think there's just something wrong with Facebook's live stream. I think now that they have the new layout, the old layout doesn't work properly anymore. Okay, still live on YouTube, not live on Facebook. My option to go live on Facebook.
Start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Kiranjana Salakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Continuing our reading of Shri Guru and His Grace by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dhadev Goswami Maharaj. Tonight we are on chapter 5, I believe. The chapters are not numbered, but I think it's number 5. Let me look at the index. The contents. Yeah. Chapter 5, titled God Consciousness versus Society Consciousness.
Hi.
Student, in the quest for spiritual truth, one may join a religious mission to advance towards the ultimate goal of life. After some time, however, sectarian policies may appear to bar the path of progress. He may see that within the society, pragmatic concerns take precedence over spiritual ideals. If one feels the necessity to look elsewhere, his authorities may tell him that there are no higher truths to be found. One may also be warned that if he leaves the society, he will suffer serious repercussions. He may become an outcast, branded as a heretic for pursuing what he sincerely feels to be the ideal upon which the society was founded. Should he risk leaving the society, ignoring the advice of his immediate authorities, or should he try to remain within the society? Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Progress means elimination and new acceptance. So, when there is a clash between the relative and the absolute standpoint, the relative must be left aside and the absolute should be accepted. Suppose you are American, but at heart you are a socialist. In your general practices, you will live harmoniously as an American. But when there is a conflict between the capitalists and the socialists, which side will you accept, socialist or capitalist? Your creed is that of a socialist. You live in a country with a majority of capitalists. When there is no difference between the two parties, there is no conflict. But when there is a clash, which side will you side with? Internally, you may identify yourself as a socialist, but for the sake of peace and for the good of the country, you may not express it externally. But suppose you are an out-and-out socialist. You will try to keep your creed, the purity of your faith, for the socialists. You will try to leave the country and join the socialists. So, for the absolute and the relative, So the absolute and the relative are two different classes of interest, and we find more importance in the absolute interest. We must be sincere to our own creed. Sometimes we have to leave our paraphernalia if it doesn't suit us. So also, even in the conception of purity of the Krishna consciousness movement, in the Vaishnava creed, there is purity and form. The form is necessary to help me in a general way to maintain my present position. At the same time, my conception of the higher ideal will always goad me to advance, to go forward. And wherever I go, I must follow the greater model, the greater ideal. Spiritual life is progressive, not stagnant. Do you follow? Devotee, yes. Catholics, Protestants, and Puritans. Srila Sridhar Maharaj. It is progressive. We are in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practice. We want a progressive life. We want to go ahead, not backwards. The formal position will help me to maintain my present status, and my extraordinary affinity for the ideal will goad me towards the front. Just as there are so many progressive parties and so many missions, progressive communist, progressive Christianity. First there were Catholics, then Protestants, again Puritans. In this way, Christianity progressed. So there is development in the right way and also in the wrong way. The search for Sri Krishna is dynamic and living, so adjustment and readjustment is always going on. And we should also change our present position accordingly, so that we may not have to sacrifice the high ideal for which we have come. One is born in a particular land by the arrangement of nature, but his high ideal may sometimes ask him to leave the country. Einstein had to leave Germany and go to America for his high ideal of life. And so many similar instances may be found in the world. The ideal is all in all. The highest ideal in a man is his highest jewel. Our most precious gem is our ideal. Many things are recommended in the scriptures, but they are meant to promote us towards the truth in an indirect way. Svadharme nidhanam shreya. It is recommended at a certain stage that for the sake of our close friends, we should give up our ideal. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's final instruction is, Sarvadhaman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. It is necessary to maintain the highest ideal. You must give up your friends. Surrender to me. I am the real purport of the scriptures. Of course, Guru Maharaj is referring to friends that will compromise one's ideal. Friends that will potentially sabotage one's progress towards their ideal. Other types of friends, for example, devotee friends, will have the opposite desirable effect. The highest kind of idealists give up their country, their family, their friends, and everything else, but they can't give up their ideal. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, it is better to die while performing one's own duty than to try to do another's duty. That is one stage of understanding, the relative consideration. The absolute consideration is also given in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhaman parityajya mamikam sharanam vraja. Krishna says, give up everything, come to me directly. This is the revolutionary way. This is absolute. And this is relative. Stick to your clan. Don't leave them. That's the relative. That is the national conception. There is nation consciousness and God consciousness. Society consciousness and God consciousness. God consciousness is absolute. If society consciousness hinders the development of God consciousness, it should be left behind. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18. Guru na sa syat svajano na sa syat, pita na sa syaj janani na sa syat, daivam natatsyan na patishcha sasyan, na mochayedya samupeta mrityum. Even a spiritual master, relative, parent, husband, or demigod who cannot save us from repeated birth and death should be abandoned at once. What to speak of ordinary things? Even the guru may have to be abandoned. One may even have to give up one's own spiritual guide, as in the case of Bali Maharaj, or one's relatives, as in the case of Vibhishan. In the case of Prahlad, his father had to be given up, and in the case of Bharat Maharaj, it was his mother. In the case of Katvanga Maharaj, he left the demigods. And in the case of the Yagyapatnis, the wives of the Brahmanas, they left their husbands in the endeavor to reach the absolute personality. We need society only to help us. If our affinity to society keeps us down, then that should be given up, and we must march on. There is the absolute consideration and the relative consideration. When they come into clash, the relative must be given up, and the absolute should be accepted. If my inner voice, my spiritual conscience, decides that this sort of company cannot really help me, then I will be under painful necessity to give them up and run towards my destination, wherever my spiritual conscience guides me. Any other course will be hypocrisy, and it will check my real progress. If we are sincere in our attempt, then no one in the world can check us or deceive us. We can only deceive ourselves. Nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tatagashyati. We must be true to our own selves and true to the Supreme Lord. We must be sincere. Disappearance of the Guru. Student, after the disappearance of the spiritual master, how should the disciples continue his mission? Srila Sridhar Maharaj, you must not neglect your conscience. You may go to fight as a soldier to save your country or your people or your honor. Your environment does not depend on your whim. It may appear externally perplexing, but you will have to face that. However complex the battlefield may be, as a soldier, you will have to fight. Otherwise, you have no faith in your own cause. There may be disturbances, we say there should be. There may even be fighting amongst devotees, but we should not leave the preaching of Mahaprabhu despite all differences. Disturbance must come because our most beloved Guru has withdrawn from amongst us. Such a great curse has been thrown on our heads. Should we like to live peacefully? In its wake, disturbances must come and we must undergo them. Still, we must remain sincere. We must face the difficulty in a proper way. It has come to train us to go in the right direction. What we received from our spiritual master, we understood only in a rough estimation. Now, things have come in such a way that we have to scrutinize ourselves in every position. We have to analyze ourselves. Atmanikshepa, self-analysis, has begun. We are under trial. What we received from our spiritual master, in what way have we received it? Properly or only showingly? The time has come to purify us, to test whether we are real students, real disciples, or his disciples only in face and confession. What is the position of a real disciple? If we live in the society, what is the depth of our creed? In what attitude have we accepted his teachings? How deep-rooted is it within us? The fire has come to test whether we can stand. Is our acceptance real, or is it a sham, an imitation? This fire will prove that. Surrounded by karma. So we must not be afraid of any adverse circumstances. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, a happy Kshatriya hankers for the battle you are facing. Shukina Kshatriya Partha Labhante Yudham Idrisham. Our karma has come to face us, to surround us, and we can't avoid it. These disturbances are a result of our own karma. They came from within us. So we must not quarrel. We must act properly in dealing with that. We have to scrutinize more accurately what we thought we understood. Everyone must ask himself, where am I? What is my real need? And how much am I hankering for the real thing? All these things will be expressed and made public. So this is the real field of sadhana or practice. Our practice, our advancement, needs all these difficulties. Otherwise, we may not know what is progress. We will become hypocrites and give the same adulterated thing to others. So, to purify ourselves, it is necessary that so many disturbances come. And God has no error. He commands the environment. It is not our responsibility. The responsibility of the environment does not rest upon us. Our responsibility is within ourselves alone. The environment is in the hands of the Lord. He has not done any wrong to me. If I am sincere, then I have to adjust myself with this environment and put my faith before him. By our stand in any circumstance in the battle, our patriotism will be put to the test. We will be tested to see whether we are real soldiers or not. Anything may come, but we will have to face that. I must not forget my Lord, my Guru, my Gauranga, my Radha Govinda under any circumstances. Under all unfavorable circumstances, I must stand with my head erect and say, yes, I am a servant of that clan, that sampradaya. Everyone may leave me, but I shall stand alone. With this attitude we must march on, whatever the circumstances may be. Then the recognition may come in my favour that, yes, under such trying circumstances, he is still there. Our superiors will be pleased with us. We must analyse ourselves. How much are we selfish? To what percent are our unwanted bad habits, anartas, still present within our hearts? How much are the impurities of karma, jnana, mental desires and other filthy things mixed with the real faith? That must come out, and that must be eliminated in different ways. If we want real good, no one can hinder us. With the spirit, we must move, and then we will be able to understand what is what. Jesus and Judas. Even Christ told his followers, one of you will betray me. Judas was amongst the 12. So Jesus said, amongst the 12 of you, there is one who will hand me over to the enemy this very night. And this may be possible. Even this may be possible. He said, even Peter, you will also deny me thrice before the cock crows. Oh, no, I can't deny you. But no pride of a devotee does the Lord tolerate. He wants surrender, complete surrender. No, Peter said, I am your faithful servant. That kind of ego must not stand. Peter, who was the leader, was also exposed. So no pride is tolerated by the Lord. Devotees are only tools in the hands of the Lord. One Muslim king advertised for a sycophant, a yes man. Previously, in the court of the kings, they had a sycophant. Whatever the king would say, he would give ditto to that. He advertised that he wanted a flatterer, and many men came and applied for the job. He began interviewing them. Do you think you'll be able to do your duty properly? Yes, I will be able to do. I think you won't be able to do it properly. No, sir, I shall be able to do it. They were all dismissed but one. When the king told him, I think you will not be able to discharge the duty of a flatterer, the remaining one said, yes, I also think like that. No, you will be able. You are the fittest. Yes, of course, I am the fittest. No, I doubt. Yes, I also doubt. The king said, yes, this man is fine for the job. The king said, this is the man for the job. Those that continuously claimed they were fit were all dispersed and rejected. So our soul must have such flexibility in the service of the Lord. We must have no ego whatsoever. Of course, that is in the external sense, for we have our permanent ego within when the soul enters into that higher domain. The position of that is a separate thing. But this material ego, that must be dissolved cent per cent. When put into the fire, it will be burned to ashes. And we must be one-pointed in our aim towards the truth. Dronacharya was the weapon master, the Astra Guru of the Pandavas. One day, while testing the progress of his disciples, he put an artificial bird in the top of a tree. One by one, he asked the brothers to come forward and take aim. Yudhisthira came forward, and Dronacharya told him, prepare yourself to hit that bird. Are you ready? Yes. What do you see? I see the bird. Anything else? Yes, I see all of you. Go away. Then another one of the brothers approached. Dronacharya told him, hit the eye of the bird. That must be marked by your arrow. Take your aim. What do you see? The bird. Anything else? Yes, the tree also. Okay, go away. Then Arjuna was taken in. Dronacharya told him, prepare yourself. Yes, my lord, I have done so. Do you see the bird? Yes, I see. The tree? No. The whole of the bird? No. What do you see? Only the head of the bird. The whole of the head? No. What do you see? Only the eye. You can see nothing else? I can see nothing else. Yes, my boy, shoot the arrow. We should have that sort of aim in our life. Do or die. Whatever circumstances may come to frighten me, I won't be frightened. If my own men seem to be my enemy, that does not matter. My own is only he, and he cannot tolerate that anyone else will be a partner of him. He is absolute. He is the absolute owner of me. He does not tolerate any partnership there. In this way, I must go where my spiritual conscience takes me. By God's will, friends may be converted into foes. Foes may be converted into friends, but I must stick to my ideal. If I am of a progressive nature, then there must be elimination and there must be new beginnings. It can't be avoided in the course of our realization. When we are in school, all do not pass, some fail, and then we have to meet new classmates. Again we advance, and again we have new classmates, and old classmates may fall behind. It is quite natural. That does not mean that we are envious of them. We are sympathetic. We shall try our best to help them. But still it may happen. We cannot help it. But this is the nature of spiritual life. So the absolute and relative principles are always clashing. They will seem to fight with one another. But the absolute should be accepted and the relative should be sacrificed. Mental prison. Still, the relative is necessary. A boy must put his whole faith in his primary school teacher, otherwise his progress will be hindered. He should not think that what his teacher teaches him is all false or of a lower type. When he grows up, he will accept another teacher for higher education. But that does not mean that the primary teacher is neglected or insulted. For our own interest, whatever we find which is akin to what was given to us by our Guru Maharaj, whatever we find that will enlighten us further, whatever will help us to understand more clearly what we have heard from our Guru Maharaj, must be accepted. Otherwise, what have I taken in the prison house of my mind through my scholarship? God is not a finite thing. He is infinite. And as much as in the cell of my brain I have imprisoned him, shall I stick only to that? What is this? Is my realization a living thing or is it dead? Is there any growth? What I have received from my spiritual master, can it grow or is it finished? Have I reached the infinite standard where I can progress no further? If someone says that he has reached that standard and that there is nothing further to be realized, then we offer our obeisances to him from far away. We are not worshippers of that. If one thinks that he is finished and that he has attained perfection, we hate it. Even an acharya should consider that he is a student and not a finished professor who has everything. One should always think of himself as a bona fide student. We have come to realize the infinite, not a finite thing. So this fight between finite and infinite knowledge will continue always. Should we think, what I have understood is absolute? No, we have not finished with knowledge. Still, we must know. As in no more. Brahma himself says, I am fully deceived by your power, Master. I am nowhere. Anyone who has come in connection with the infinite cannot but say this, I am nothing. That should be the salient point. The propounder of the greatest scripture in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, says, Purishera kita haite muni se lagishta. I am lower than a worm and stool. This is his statement, and he is saying so sincerely. Should we be ashamed to express our negative character, our negative development, which is the real wealth for a disciple? So, because such a negative character is shown by him, we fall at his feet. And if someone says, I have finished all knowledge, God, Chaitanya, is my disciple, he should be shot down as the greatest enemy ever found in the world. That's the end of the chapter. comments?
Share some commentary. There's so much packed in there. There's
Yeah.
so many important points.
Mm.
So many kind of like classic points which are, quoted in so many different contexts.
Yes.
The one-pointed vision is always like that's a good weekly vision that comes up very often.
One point, yeah. Die to live is now a phrase. I think it originated with Hegel, German philosopher, right? Yeah, I think so. Guru Maharaj, he studied philosophy, I guess, at college, isn't it?
He studied, Gurudev mentioned he studied all the world philosophies. I don't know if it was at college or not, but he studied them, apart from one, which was maybe Russian. I don't remember, but he mentioned that. All the world philosophies and stuff.
I see. And so he quotes, there's several, of course he extracted as a Paramahamsa does, extracts the nectar and leaves the chaff. So some statements that Guru Maharaj is transformed into nectar. That I mean any philosopher can come up with a nice statement, but for it to be applied properly is a little more difficult. And that's often the difference. Sorry?
Have the right ontology also. It's a phrase by itself. Yeah, as Hegel conceived it, the outer covering is the same, but the substance is extremely different.
Right, yeah. So to apply, to give it its position in a hierarchy or what have you, to give it proper application. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what you were saying, but I rudely interrupted.
No problem, that's okay. Consider it an open forum. Guru Maharaj extracted them and often the difference between Western and Eastern philosophy is that Western philosophy can contain some interesting principles and some good points, but there's no emphasis on its actual application, on making it something real in your life. And that's why speaking with people that have studied philosophy is sometimes one of the most, for a spiritual practitioner, speaking with people that have studied philosophy, sometimes one of the most frustrating experiences. Because you have knowledge that has not been, not institutionalized, but applied, practicalized, or made real, integrated into one's life. And it's almost worse than having no knowledge at all, because often it leads to a certain confusion. Because theory without application, there's no realization of it eventually. So you may end up like, who is that? And I think Guru Maharaj also quotes in one or two places, Nietzsche. And end up going a little bit loopy.
Yeah.
They may have insight into certain areas of human nature and theological concepts between the relationship between man and God. But unless there's no actual seeking in terms of, unless what we might call there's no sadhana practice, then it can simply derail one's sense of well-being.
Well, like Freud as well, right? He goes a bit weird.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
He makes some sharp observations about human nature, but it all kind of ends in something a bit distasteful.
Yeah.
And then Nietzsche, to call him a little bit loopy, is like a gigantic understatement. He went fully insane.
Yes.
Really?
He went fully insane.
He committed suicide, right?
But he was like one of the smartest people who's ever lived. He was like extremely intelligent, but also he didn't have so much spiritual vision as to, like, he was so focused on the dark part of the world that sort of, like, you know, he had very, very poor health, and so he spent a lot of time. He spent like weeks thinking out 4 sentences or 5 sentences to write down. So most of his books are written across like 6 or 7 years, just like the tiny spaces of time when he could actually pick up a pen. But he just see the worst. He was like extremely intelligent, seeing the worst in all of the universe.
It's actually like a type of curse.
Yeah.
to be able
In his
to
case, absolutely.
see in a very deep way the dysfunction and you know,
because like, yeah, he definitely
and
had
to not believe in anything higher, you know, and what's the point of living?
But yeah, definitely the whole thing about Western philosophy being theoretical. It's like if there's no adjustment of vision at that point, you're just gathering facts that you're putting in your pocket like pebbles. But yeah, there's no rejection of previous things. There's just a continuous acceptance of new things usually.
Yes.
So you're like, well, yeah, you know, I know heaps about, because of course it's different with that group of people. Like, yeah, I know heaps about Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, all these different things, Zen, tribalism, and these kinds of things. And then it's like, well, what do you do? And he's like, well, it's just like, well, I'm a uni student.
Yeah. And that's all that system of education can offer, really.
Yeah.
In fact, they frown on trying to subjectivize it and practice or internalize it and practice it. That's frowned upon because then you cannot objectively analyze it anymore. Then you're sort of, you know, you're biased. You become biased.
Right. You become a laughing stock.
Yeah. And so you end up never. I mean, it's the example of analyzing, taking the honey into the laboratory and analyzing it and becoming conversant of the constituents of honey, right? Okay, so much sucrose and so much pollen and wax and propolis and what else have you. So knowing the exact nature of the constitution of the honey. And so, yes, I've got a PhD in what honey is constituted of. And have you ever tasted honey? No, that would be biased. I'd start to really like honey, perhaps, and I wouldn't be able to see it in a non-prejudiced way anymore.
I don't want to be able to run experiments on honey, but I spend all my time tasting it.
Yeah.
Nava Sundar he told me something really, really early on that I found really helpful, which was very similar to that with a little bit added on, where he was like, this whole spiritual practice is not about being like, you know, I'm the master of iPads, I know everything about iPads, I can make an iPad out of dirt. It's about going, oh, you have an iPad? I have an iPad too, let's do something with that. Like it's the thing of I don't think there's no ideas about like if you're not practicing it and you can't connect with other people who are practicing it, so no community can be formed around it. There can only be a community formed around theoretically knowing about it. Like, because that's not even getting to the honey jar thing usually. Like, even like more proper gyan about, you know, the constitution of the soul and these kinds of things. Like, even that's, yeah.
Die to live. So Guru Maharaj liked to quote some German, Hegel, Kant, and extract the nectar from all of the other tripe that it was often mixed in with. So die to live is now associated in certain circles more with Guru Maharaj than with Hegel. And the concept of sacrifice and practical application, acceptance and elimination being emphasized by Gurudev is absent in that Western philosophy. But
and then the notion of rejection of all else apart from exactly the essence of which our gurus are trying to lead us towards is another good idea to try to be holding yourself to. Because there's all these things that you should be checking constantly in the way of conducting yourself. Like, am I really, what am I actually holding on to? Where am I trying to go? What's this, am I holding on to all this unnecessary baggage that could be easily dropped? Not dropped isn't like totally dropped, but you know, your attachment to it at least. Imagining where to go and not going, oh, but I need to take my whole house with me. You can just take a suitcase and you can, gradually sell off your possessions.
even to the point of sacrifice of what is considered near and dear in this world, family, friends. It's a difficult position to come to because all of these items constitute one's sense of security in the world. So to leave them behind does feel like a kind of death. Shedding of an artist does feel like a kind of loss. And it's a very tangible thing because there's a deep psychological attachment, and even deeper than the psychology, deep egoic attachment. So when the ego is beginning to get broken down, it does feel like a kind of a loss, a death. And that attachment is built up over timeless lifetimes, generation after generation. The samskaras are reinforced, they may change, they may mutate to a certain degree, but nonetheless habits are reinforced and material attachments are reinforced lifetime after lifetime. So to break them down, to let them go, to eliminate them in the interest of new acceptance, does feel like a kind of death. Can create a sense of destruction of one's personal security. So it's very difficult for people. People will instinctively reject such a thing because it does feel like a dying to live. Hence the phrase. But the important point to remember in the verse quoted by Guru Maharaj here is the famous Gita verse, Sarvadhamam Prityadyam Amikam Sharanam Vraja. Krishna is saying, don't worry. He's giving the comforting advice that there's nothing to worry about in this process of surrender, even though it may entail initial feelings of insecurity, loss, discomfort. Still, there is nothing too much. There's nothing to worry about because all sorts of difficulties or unwelcome, unpleasant karma that may be due to one, Krishna says he'll shield them from that. You'll be protected from that. There's no need to worry. There's another verse earlier, I think it's earlier in the Gita, chapter 9. No, that's not that one. It's what's the verse in the Gita Vishaka where it's chapter 9, Krishna supplies what they lack and Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Pari Upasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyam. That another assurance that Krishna will supply and sustain a person who has made that sacrifice, made that surrender, gone through that initial process of elimination in the interest of accepting Krishna as their shelter. And so Krishna makes that guarantee, that very real guarantee. And it's not a theoretical thing. That supply and that protection, that supply of the devotee's needs, is also on the level of one's, let's say, deficiencies in one's nature or one's character. Krishna will compensate for that, for the sincere person. But also on the practical level of sustenance, day-to-day support. Krishna is also looking after devotees. And there's everything is done at an appropriate level. So even though there may seem to be some lack at certain points, that is also considered as a desirable situation for a devotee's progress. And then another verse that this leads to is that, and I think this verse Gurudev described as, if there's just one verse that you want to cherish and keep in mind, then it's Bhagavad Bhakti Sarvam, it's Yudstrijya Vidhirapi Kainkaryam Krishna Padaika Shriyatvam Sharanagati. And that everything is achieved. So not only is a devotee looked after, taken care of, but all achievements are obtained, or all really anything that can be supplied in the material world, in the pursuit of happiness and goals and ambitions that are offered in this world, it's also available, but on a spiritual level, in the plane of devotional service as opposed to exploitation. And so it's an excellent sloka, and Gurudev advises to keep it as the premier sloka for a devotee.
Could you repeat it again? Sorry.
So it goes Bhagavad Bhakti Sarvam Itsyutstrijya Vidhirapi Kainkaryam Krishna Padaika Shrayatvam Sharanagati. It's used as a definition for Sharanagati. Now it's a definition for Sharanagati. And so it's saying that by definition, Sharanagati is that state where one has absolute confidence that by surrendering to Krishna's lotus feet, everything desirable is achieved. There's no sense of lack or want or deficiency in that state of surrender. Everything desirable is achieved. So the process of elimination and that process of giving up so-called near and dear things in this world does not actually lead to a state of lack. It leads to a state of absolute fulfillment.
That combined with the point about how often when we're trying to give up our own life, there's some fear of loss of our ego. Yeah, there's some fear of loss of our ego, and going, what would I be like if I didn't do that?
Sure.
And then also that if you and then you'll be totally looked after, and there will actually be no deficiency. There's sort of confidence in the Lord's protection.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's always good to sort of flesh out more.
Yes. Sometimes, however, the idea that, I'm scared I might lose my material desires. Well, it's not always such an easy thing. There was this one devotee a long time ago in New Vashana, New Zealand, and he was after he joined the devotees, he was confiding, and he said, confiding in someone, he said, well, he was a surfer, right? And he was coming and visiting the devotees on a Sunday, taking prasad. He had read some literature, and he wanted to get more involved, but he was a little hesitant, because he thought that if he was to get more involved, then he would lose interest in surfing.
Where was this?
And he didn't want to lose his desire to go surfing. And but losing material surfing is not such a devious desire anyway. But losing material or purifying one's material desires is not so necessarily such a quick process. Of course, it depends on one's sincerity and application in sadhana, but it doesn't necessarily happen overnight.
No.
So after a few years of not surfing, he did start surfing again. Not that he gave up his Krishna conscious practices, but anyway.
Sri Radharaman said the same thing. That was Burijan's personal servitor. I wonder if that was him.
No, it wasn't him.
Definitely wasn't him.
Different fellow.
So you knew the person. I thought it was like hearsay.
No, I knew him.
That's fine.
I heard him say it.
First time.
Yeah.
Very nice.
We'll be back, same place, same time, tomorrow. Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sri Thadev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gurudev ki jai.